Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alec Sunners. I am joined here by Roger Bair, and today we're going to be talking about how to not run out of money in retirement.
Yeah, definitely, Alec. As you said, I'm Roger Bair. We're from the financial consulate, and not running out of money in retirement is a great thing to talk about. I was thinking about it driving to work this morning, realizing that as I approach retirement, 4 years from now, yeah, I'd like to know how I can avoid running out of money. But there's so many variables to think about our life expectancy and about market returns, which is something we are intimately familiar with, and all these inputs. And I think it does call for a robust piece of software, which I think actually we're going to show everybody today.
Yeah, I think simply put, the best way to not run out of money in retirement is just to have a plan. Think about all of these things before you head into retirement so that as things come up, you have a plan to deal with them all. So as Roger queued up, we have a software here that we're going to go through a example of a couple that's heading into retirement, and we're going to walk through what they should be thinking about and how they can not run out of money. So everything you see here is made up. This isn't a real couple. This is all fictitious. So to start here, we just have the client's basic information. So we have John and Jane here, age 59 and 57, both still employed, and they're thinking about retiring. And where do we go from here?
So, and we have the option through the software of inputting a significant number of variables. And the first one will be interesting that you'll show on the screen on the next slide.
One of the big things that we need to answer is, one, when do you want to retire? And two, how long are you going to live? Now, obviously, no one can come to us and say, Alec and Roger, I'm going to die at age 91 and 6 months. So we have to come up with a better answer for that. And the way that the program uses they put it in a nice way. They call it the end of the plan, when in reality, it means the day you're going to die. And what the program does is use actuarial data, and it projects out a life expectancy for both the man and the woman. So in this case, we have John living to age 93 and Jane living to age 96. So based on this inputs, we're going to have John, let's see if he can retire at age 60. So we're going to have him retire next year. We're going to have Jane retire next year, and we're going to see what the program has in store for them. One of the other things that we have to decide is, are they going to move? Right now, they're in Maryland. Maybe they move, maybe they don't. That's one of the things that they will have to consider going into retirement. Right now, we have them staying in Maryland in retirement, and the program's going to show us what that's going to look like and if there are any other alternatives that we can use.
Well, and I'm smiling because you know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say yes. If you live in Maryland, don't retire here. For tax purposes, I did a retirement seminar recently, and I said for tax reasons you should probably move from the state of Maryland. And a number of folks raised their hands and objected, not due to the tax sentiment, but because Maryland's a pretty nice place to live, and I can't disagree with that. But nonetheless, I think the three variables you have on the screen, when are you going to retire? You have generally you have control over that. And we don't know how long we're going to live, although we would think by the age of 60, you have a sense of how well, how good your health is. Maybe I should say it that way. And then certainly you do have an option of retiring elsewhere, but taxes may indeed not be the primary driver of where you are going to retire. It might be proximity to health. To health care, or family members, or who knows what else, Alex.
Yeah. So the other big questions that we have to answer is not just when we're going to retire, it's how much are we going to spend in retirement? It's a difficult question for a lot of people because a lot of people, they're employed, they have a steady income coming in, they know what they can expect to spend. So that's why we have to plan out, as we head into retirement, you don't have that employment income. What type of things can we spend money on and how much? So what we like to do is come up with a list of different goals and split them into different categories. We have needs, wants, and wishes. So the needs are the things that are the necessities. So this is, the roof above your head. This is dinner on the table. These are clothes on your back. This is the standard day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month expenses that you need to have in order to survive. The other category of wants are things that you can expect that you want to do in retirement. These are the things like cars, vacations, celebrations, other things of that nature. And then lastly, we have wishes. Wishes are the things that you're hopeful to do, but if they don't happen, it's not too important to you. So maybe you want to buy a boat or buy a beach house or pay for a grandchild's college. These are the type of goals that fall into that scenario of the wishes. So in this example, I'm going to walk through the different goals we have in here for John and Jane. So for needs, since John and Jane are retiring before Medicare age of 65, right down here we have healthcare. Before Medicare, we have to get them private insurance. Now, private health insurance can be pretty expensive. So one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that before we hit Medicare age, John and Jane are have to spend around $20,000 per year on healthcare. Now, the program then goes into different categories of healthcare. So since John and Jane, we have different ages. We have John on Medicare, but Jane's retired before Medicare. That's $16,700 a year. And then finally, we have both on Medicare, $10,697 per year. And then we have Jane living longer, almost $7,000 per year on healthcare. The other big goal that we have is our basic living expense. So this is the things like food, entertainment, clothes, shopping. All of those things are sort of bundled into one number, and we have them at $10,000 per month while retired. One of the things that we have to keep in mind with the software, Roger, is that $10,000 per month now and $10,000 per month in 30 years is going to be totally different numbers than what $10,000 goes for.
Well, and that embodies one of the large assumptions the software makes is what's the inflation rate going forward? These, as you say, these numbers, these expense numbers are inflated over time. And though the software assumes, say, a 2.5% inflation rate today, might seem like a small number, but as you say, over 30 years, it really adds up. The other observation I would make right off the bat is that you can see the cost of healthcare insurance for retiring before you're qualified for Medicare is significant. It's quite expensive. So frequently we'll counsel clients to try to at least make it to Medicare age. We'll see in this case how it works out.
So those are the needs. Now let's get into some of the things that a lot of clients ask about is, well, we want to do this in retirement. We plan on doing this. So in this wants category, we have a couple new cars every couple of years. So we have John getting a new car every 7 years, starting in 2025. The same thing with Jane. She's getting a new car in 2030, and that's continuing on every 7 years, $40,000 for each. They also want to travel. So we have them retiring and then traveling every single year for $15,000. And that's in addition to the $10,000 per month. They now have a travel budget of $15,000 per year. And then lastly, we have paying for a couple of years of college for a grandchild. I know education is very important to a lot of our clients, and they want to help out their own children with helping their grandchildren paying for college. So we have in here paying for 2 years of a public school for a grandchild in a couple of years. So we have that starting in 2041, and the tuition we have expected at $20,000.
So if you, as I look at this, Alec, if you aggregate all of this, it's a fair amount of annual spending. And we'll see, and you're going to show us here in a minute what, now we'll go to the income side of the equation. Will the income and the investments support this level of spending?
Yep. So what the program does is it says, all right, step one is determining when you're going to retire and how much are you going to spend. Step two is how are you going to fund all of this spending? Do you have pensions? Do you have assets? How is this income going to be supplied? So let's take a look and see what we have inputted here for John and Jane. So first thing, we have Social Security. Since they're retiring at age 60, we're going to say, what happens if they collect as soon as possible? So both starting at age 62, John's getting a little under 30,000 and Jane's getting a little under 21,000. We can look at the different scenarios of Social Security and what is the best time to collect. One of the things with Social Security that you have to keep in mind is it's just a calculation. Going back to our previous example, if you can tell us the day that you're going to die, we can tell you the day to collect Social Security to maximize it. Now, obviously, that isn't possible. So we do our best to make a strategy to come up with the best time to collect.
But we do know absolutely, Alec, that if you collect Social Security at age 62, you collect it at a decreased amount. That is, said another way, you live out a discounted benefit for the rest of your life. Nonetheless, so John and Jane are going to collect what, about $50,000 in Social Security, inflation adjusted, for the rest of their lives. So that's a significant amount of guaranteed annual inflation adjusted income.
Yep. And then the other side of the income is John and Jane. Not everyone has these, but it looks like John and Jane, we have both receiving a pension. We have Jane receiving $40,000 per year, and we have John getting 18,500. Now, the thing with these pensions is the ones we have inputted don't have a cost of living adjustment. So that 40,000 that Jane's getting every year is going to be 40,000 this year, 40,000 next year, 40,000 10 years from now. And it's not inflation adjusted like the other numbers we have in here.
So if we aggregate the Social Security and the pensions, that's significantly more. It's what, Social Security 50,000, pensions almost 60,000. So that's a fair amount of money they can count on. I wouldn't say the pensions are, in quotes, guaranteed. That is, they don't have a level of guarantee like the United States of America. And as you correctly point out, they are not inflation adjusted. So we have to include the fact that the purchasing power of those dollars will be eroded by inflation over time.
Yeah. So those are the sources of the income that's coming in on a steady basis. The other side of the coin is investment assets. So right now we have a couple of different investment assets. I'll go through each. So John, we have a 401k. He's got a little over 900,000 in it. Jane's got a 403b. She has 365,000 in it. They each have a Roth IRA. Jane's got 116, John's got 112, and then they got a little cash on the side earning at $54,000. So that's the current value of everything, 1.5 million. And then we also have some annual additions into the account. So John and Jane are each doing a percentage of their income into their company retirement plans, as well as maxing out their Roth IRAs each year. So that annual addition into the accounts is 40,750. The thing with these annual additions is that it completely stops once they retire. So if we have them retiring next year, this is the last year that any annual additions are going into these retirement accounts.
Of course, nearly $41,000 of annual additions is not minor, but I think you said, and correctly so, they're maxing out their Roth IRAs, but they are not maxing out their contributions to their 401ks and 403bs, because those maximums would be 30,000 or more, right? Yep. So they could be putting in significantly more money if they chose to, also understanding that the money you put into retirement accounts is not money you can spend today on your standard of living, right?
That's correct. Yeah, you hit it spot on right there. So other than investment assets, we have John and Jane just having their house. That's their only other asset. The thing that's calculated a little bit differently with the program is the house has a value, but it's not going to fund any goals. You're not going to sell your house to put food on the table. So the house is more of a record keeping. We're saying it's worth 650. That's going to go into what their net worth is, but we're not going to use it to draw upon to spend money.
And as you open the liabilities, I think the reason that we do that, Alec, is we assume that, yeah, like you said, you're not going to sell your house to put food on the table. Moreover, if you sell this house, you're going to buy another, or use that money to put a down payment down for another place to live, an independent living facility at continuing care retirement community. So at least in our minds, it would be a mistake to include proceeds from the sale of the house as money to defray expenses in retirement.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, the only liability we have here is the mortgage. So John and Jane in this scenario have done a pretty good job at. They've got 1.5 million in assets. The only liability they have is the mortgage. They don't have to worry about, student loans or credit cards or car loans going into retirement. So if we come down here, last section here is net worth. Their net worth is just shy of $2 million. They've got the investment assets of 1.5, the house of 650. So total assets, 2.2 million. Take out the little bit of the mortgage, and that's where they get that net worth of just under 2 million. So they've done a pretty good job up until this point of accumulating wealth. Now the question is that enough to fund all of these goals that they have in retirement?
Right, and kind of taking stock, you've got a net worth of nearly 2 million. And as you say, 1.5 million in invested assets and about 110,000 in pension and social security income. Sounds like a pretty solid scenario. Let's see what the software says.
So the way the software is going to calculate this is it's going to take all of the goals that we had. So we have those income goals. So we have healthcare, basic living, travel, cars, college, all of that spending. And then what the program does is it says, okay, you're getting 50,000 in Social Security, nearly 60,000 in pensions, and now you have 1.5 million in investment assets. The program's going to run 1,000 different market simulations of those investment assets. So it's going to have good markets followed by bad markets in one scenario. Another scenario is going to be bad markets followed by good markets. 1,000 different simulations just like that. And the program is going to give us a probability of success for this plan. Are we going to run out of money or not? So when I hit this button, we're going to see that even with that Social Security, the pensions, the investment assets, the program's giving this a 0% probability of success. Why is that, Roger?
Well, first of all, let's just say it. We ran out of money. Why is that? Why did we run out of money? And the fact is, if you sit back, at least at this moment, you don't know. And therein lies the difficulty of this question. How do you decide if you have really good pension, Social Security income, about 1.5 million in investment assets, somehow you ran out of money? And what do? Well, the software is going to give us the opportunity to experiment with or modify those inputs to determine, okay, A, how did we run out of money? And B, what changes can we make to help us not do so, at least in the estimation of the software?
Yeah. So one of the things that before we jump into changing the plan to figure out what went wrong and how we can fix it, is I just want to pull up a cash flow chart. And there's going to be a lot of numbers on here, but basically what I want to show is how the software is getting to this 0% probability of success, the sort of behind the scenes of that graph. So basically, to sum this chart up, is this top section is going to be the income. So we've got just under 60,000 of income. This next section is going to be all of the goals that we have in retirement. So healthcare, basic living, cars, travel, college, etc. So that total goal funding of all those goals is 144,000. Now, one of the things that you'll see in this cash flow chart is a couple red X's. And what the program's doing is it's saying, hey, you're running out of money. We can't spend that travel goal yet. We don't have the money to fund that goal. So we're going to make that 0 because we can't run out of money. So we're going to start drawing back on these goals. This next section is the portfolio. So we start with 1.6, investment earnings of 76,000, and our deficit from our spending is 94,000. So what that tells us is that we have to draw upon the portfolio more than it's earning. So we're drawing into that principal each year. And each year this deficit is going to be more than what our portfolio is earning. So that portfolio value is going to keep decreasing. This last section here is just the taxes. So taxes are included in all of these calculations. And then we'll see at the very bottom that adjusted portfolio value starts at 1.6 and then just steadily decreases throughout retirement until we're out of money.
So I think, Alec, the benefit of showing this table is just to assure everyone who was watching that the software is accounting for all of the expenses and income in great detail. And the beauty of the software is it can do so so much better than we could if we were using Microsoft Excel or some other more basic vehicle.
Yeah. So the next step that we have to do is figure out how can we make this plan successful? And one of the things we alluded to at the very beginning is that retiring before Medicare age greatly increases your health insurance costs. So maybe working a couple years more for John and Jane to get to that age 65 could really impact the plan that we have set forth here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to illustrate what that would look like. I'm going to have them each retiring at 65 instead of next year. So now when we jump into the goals, obviously the goals that we had first initially said are not going to work. So we're going to have to do some adjusting to figure out what type of spending can John and Jane do in retirement to be confident that they're not going to run out of money. So one of the big drivers of this program is this basic living expense number. It's the biggest number, it's reoccurring every year, and it's inflation adjusted. So let's say instead of when they're both retired needing $120,000 per year, let's say they spend $100,000 instead. And then this Jane alone retired period, we have Jane living longer. So when John is not around, we're going to have her spend just a little bit less each year because there's only expenses for one person.
So, Alec, you want to check to see maybe what those changes made in terms of whether the scenario is going to work?
Yep. So we're going to have them retire a couple of years later, spend a little bit less. Let's see what this does for the plan. Well, we're seeing a lot more green on this chart, which is the step in the right direction. So every green line you see here is a successful plan, and every red line is an unsuccessful plan. So now we're at a 56% probability of success. So still, we're not too confident that this plan is going to work out the way that it is currently, but we're stepping in the right direction. Those small changes, so cutting back on spending a couple thousand a year and retiring a couple years later, already greatly improves the plan.
Okay, so we've gone from 0 to 56% by changing those two variables alone.
One of the other things that we also alluded to was that Social Security number. Taking it at age 62 means you're going to get a discounted benefit for the rest of your life. So what we're going to do in here is just adjust the Social Security number to have them not collect at age 62 and see what type of different scenarios about collecting dates, how that will affect the plan. So for John, what we're going to do is we're going to have him collect at age 70. The reason we're having him collect at age 70 is because he has the higher benefit of both him and Jane. By him waiting to age 70, he's fully maximizing his Social Security benefit. The advantage of doing that is when one of the two are going to pass away, John or Jane, his benefit is the one that the surviving spouse is going to collect after the deceased spouse is gone. So by fully maximizing this benefit, if John passes away early, that benefit is fully maximized and will continue on for the rest of Jane's life. And then on Jane's side, we're going to collect at her full retirement age. So for her, that's age 67. So now we're at 52,825 in benefit for John and 30,000 in benefit for Jane. And both of these numbers are inflation adjusted as well. So let's see what type of impact changing collection date for Social Security is going to have.
So in Social Security, we went from 50 to 80,000, almost 81,000. So let's see. There you go, touchdown.
So as you can see, we jump up to 83% probability of success. And what this is it's smack dab in the middle of the confidence zone. What the confidence zone is we can be confident that John and Jane are not going to run out of money in retirement. The way that we define the confidence zone is that you are spending your money in retirement and you might leave money behind, you might not. But the goal is we're going to live their retirements to their full benefit. If one of their goals was, hey, we have 2 children, we want to leave a large sum of money behind to our children, that's when we'd say, okay, maybe we want our probability of success to be 95%. When we get up that high, we can start being confident that, hey, you're not going to run out of money and you're going to leave money behind. It's all dependent on the client's goals, and we can illustrate that on each client's different scenarios.
I think another important question, Alec, that we should emphasize here is, okay, we have an 83% chance of not running out of money. There is a small chance that you would run out of money. So you set this goal and set your portfolios and don't do any monitoring. You don't come back and monitor. You don't rerun the scenario again. Everything is fine. You come back in 20 or 30 years. Will that work? And the answer is unequivocally no.
No.
No,
Yeah.
that is a recipe for disaster. So we maintain that clients should monitor their expenses, monitor their spending, monitor investment results, and continue to run a software like Money Guide Pro to make sure that they aren't getting into one of these scenarios which will lead to depleting their resources.
Yeah, I think it's very important that scenarios change. While today this scenario has an 83% probability of success, things change. Things in John and Jane's life could change, and that could impact the plan. Things in the macroeconomic field could change, and that can impact the plan. And it's very important that you don't just say, oh, cool, 83%, I will see you guys in 30 years. We have to monitor this, update this, and make sure all of the goals are still aligned with the goals the client has.
And that really is the recipe for success. Even if you have an 83, a 90% appraisal of success, according to Money Guide Pro and all of our inputs, all of these assumptions, we need to continually revisit the program and your entire plan, which, as you indicated, is really the key. You need a plan to try to make sure you don't run out of money. And you've got to be monitoring how you are going along in your expenses and investment returns in retirement.
Yeah, and like we said at the beginning, the biggest, most important thing you can do to not run out of money in retirement is to have a plan. Keep that plan updated, keep checking in with us, and we'll make sure that we keep this Money Guide Pro software updated so we can continue to monitor how that probability of success is changing as years go on.
So if you would happen to be a current client and haven't spoken with us about updating your Money Guide Pro scenario in recent times, then please reach out to your advisor here at the Financial Consulate. And there you go. That's perfect. And if you are a person who is not a client and is concerned about running out of money in retirement, as certainly everyone ought to be, then definitely reach out to us and talk to us about how we plan for retirement and how we use Money Guide Pro software.
Yeah, it was great talking with everyone today. It was great talking with you, Roger. If anyone has any questions, please reach out to us. If you're interested in becoming a client, you can just scan that QR code, go to the Financial Consulate's website, or give us a call. We're happy to talk with everyone.
So on behalf of the Financial Consulate team, Alec and I wish you good afternoon and thank you for attending.
All right, thanks everyone.